Thanks, guys. I really want to say one thing first, which is if I'd even had about 20 minutes between the last session and what I'm going to say now, I'd probably say something completely different, which to me is probably one of the most important things about being in a room with people who really, really understand and know about practice. So, one of the things that and this bit is totally off the hook and not on my notes, which is the other thing that I want to say, is that at this point, I feel like I've had a provocation, which was the last session, and there's part of me that would like to be able to deeply reflect on that before I think about the next thing that I'm going to do. But because of that, I'm going to do something a little bit more difficult for me and a bit more scary, which is I'm going to try and take some of that thinking into what I'm going to say now. So I might completely, not gloriously fail in the way that Ewan did, but just totally fail. But I'm going to give it a go, because if I can't take risks with you, what's the point? So what I want to say is that I feel, and I'll come back to the wonderful Rhian Hutchins and the extraordinary work that she's done, but I want to say, for anybody who doesn't know me, I work for an organisation which is actually a community development organisation. So I don't work mostly with people in the arts, but there is the part that I kind of run and I'm the artistic director of is a youth arts project which will be going into its 20th year in 2018. And most of the people over that time, 80% of the people who are now on my team were the kids who I initially worked with. So only probably about 2 people, one of who's in the room, Emma, are actually not Valley's kids themselves, if you know what I mean. So clearly, if you stick around that long in a community, you care about what you're doing in terms of participation in the arts. And quality, what this bloody quality is, feels very important because you know that you want to create great work. The question is, as ever, who's best placed to talk and think about that? And although we've done this extraordinary work, is it the fact, because I'm asking provocatively, that unless we can establish social and economic measures for funders, that any talk about quality will be largely ignored? If all the interested parties, the funders, the practitioners and the participants don't adopt the idea of looking at principles together, will we fail? And is it an equal relationship? Is it really the case that the practitioners and the participants and the funders are working together to look at quality? And in that relationship, for me, absolutely crucially, is actually the relationship of the practitioner. So where is the place of trust for the practitioner who's made this their job and their life to help to establish quality in the work? Where is that place? And is that place really, really given a voice? Is it inevitable that the one final arbiter of quality in our current setup, which is where the conversations that we've been having in our previous peer-to-peer mentoring really come to the fore, who are we actually doing this for? Who are we trying to prove this to? And is the idea that the final arbiter of quality will be our funder really inevitable? That actually we're placing ourselves in a situation where we're saying, do you think we're good? And if they say, yes, you are, you will be funded. And if they say, no, you're not, out you go. And some people are actually beginning to have the conversation about, is that even a way to begin to practice? Or is that way of practicing even really got any kind of validity anymore? In terms of myself, I was on the working party, so please don't think that I'm not somebody who hasn't given this my best shot. I went on the working party. I was passionately interested in it, and the thing that I absolutely loved about that working party is that it was practitioner focused, and it was a group of practitioners around the table who were looking at it. And I know that that work was backed up by Rian and ArtWorks, not just in Wales but across the UK, really grappling with this issue, looking into research, talking to all the relevant people. So I don't have anything about people have not looked at this and given it their best shot. So there's the part of me that says, could we be forgiven for saying that we put in all that work, we've cracked it. We have some principles which I believe are really simple. They're not there to say that we are going to say that this is what quality looks like. They're there to say that this is how we ourselves can think about quality. And that felt really important to me. So we were not using it in that way. But that was my first kind of quality wobble. Because although I fully appreciate that it's early days, we produced the quality principles, and the idea was that this is something that the Arts Council of Wales had commissioned us to do. And I started to think, so how now am I going to be able to interface with other people with these quality principles and talk to them about the fact, if you look at them, they're very, very simple, just about a way of talking about how we can create a framework, and I should say specifically for participatory arts. What happened was I was confronted with a whole other ream of Arts Council of Wales initiatives around evaluation structures. So there were Arts Council of Wales initiatives around the fact that I was involved with an Ideas, People and Places project. 18 months into that project, a consultant was introduced to us, and we were told that from now on we would be evaluating that project using the theory of social change, which was an entirely new thing for me. So we also had to learn about the theory of social change in order to be able to do that. We previously commissioned our own evaluator, Ros Hall, a really experienced artist who had worked deeply in evaluation, had worked alongside arts organisations and had her own methodology. And I had a really interesting conversation with Ros and I know that Rian has talked to somebody who is experienced in that field, but I didn't feel like this was something that was right in the centre of that process, that we could really use these principles that we put all this work into at the centre of that process. At the same time, due to the tireless work of my amazing revenue officer, who was kind of bucked the trend and allowed herself to go on a journey with us, instead of feeling like this was somebody who was going to intermittently turn up every now and again. And really, Sian Thomas, who had worked with us, had really allowed herself to be part of our journey in Valley's Kids. But you know, she had to get 3 national advisors to come out and evaluate our work. The first person who came and did that was an experienced practitioner in her own right. And she came to us, she talked to my team, she talked to the young people, she talked to ourselves. She may or may not have known about the quality principles, but she operated on the basis of the 3 intentions that we had really put forward. And those intentions, for people who may not be so aware of them, were to look at kind of like the whole planning process of what we were doing, our actual practice, and how we would kind of evaluate that practice. But so that person came out and wrote a report on our work that had a real validity for us in terms of our practice, and we had a real conversation with that person. But I don't necessarily know that she was operating on the same page with us in terms of the quality principles. The second person who came out to do that, which was my big quality wobble, after 6 years of working with one group of 8 children, who in the first instance were children who, if they were in the room with us and we tried to work with them in terms of their own social health, just broke down in either tears or tantrums, or really, really fell apart in the process. And they were part of an amazing room that had been set up by an inspirational teacher in Llandrindod called the Nurture Room. And we went into there, and it was some of the most difficult early practice that we did. And over a period of 6 years, they worked with one of the young women that I've talked about from Valley's Kids, who became a practitioner within her own right, came back having trained and developed a piece of work which was actually around Kafka's story of the metamorphosis story, so the story of the cockroach. And we went on this extraordinary journey. But the person who came out to look at that journey came for an hour in Rawfast to see the final performance of their work. And she wrote her evaluation of our work on the basis of that interface, if you like. And her concern was largely with the form of the piece. You know, that the cues weren't maybe quite on time, that we needed to work on the performance element of the work with the kids in a more integrated way. And one of her biggest concerns was the subtlety of the piece. There was a young woman there, a young girl there who had never had a friend before she was in the project. And she had been bullied from the moment that she entered the school system. And there's a moment in the play where she comes forward and she says to the audience, in this case mostly a youth audience, you're the monsters. Because she's talking about defending her cockroach son. You're the monsters. He doesn't have to change. You do. Now actually I looked around and saw there were young people from the Torch Theatre and they had tears running down their faces. But she felt that that message was a little bit overly worked. So I'm not criticising that particular individual. They came for an hour's process. What I'm trying to say is I couldn't see the place of the quality principles in that context. And I know that Rian has had a really in-depth conversation with the Arts Council about how that moves forward. But I think what I just wanted to say, I don't want to overframe on something, I just wanted to say that if the quality principles, which are really a guideline and are not there to say that we are the people who can measure quality, are really going to work for us as practitioners, it feels to me that it's very, very important that they become at the heart of any kind of assessment process, and that we work with each other to look at them together with the funders, with the participants. And I know that that is the absolute desire of what Rian has set out to do. But we also need to we need to have a conversation with the Arts Council about this proliferation, because the big thing that Ewan talked about with Anne Harrod is all of this, in some sense, all this constantly evaluating the impact of our work. Is it a diversionary tactic, or is it truly about wanting to do great work? And that's something that I've been left with in relation to the conversations that we've been having today. So if we're going to use them, can we use them to replace bureaucracy? Can we not just let them add in to another layer of bureaucracy in the Arts Council or with other funders? Because I didn't mention ESME, I have to do all this kind of work in relation to our other funders who have their own evaluation frameworks, who have their own impacts that they want delivering on. So my plea is, in terms of the provocation, if we don't ensure that these principles are really truly understood, then we will be in a situation where we can't make progress. And I know that the people in this room are desperate to make progress in ensuring that we produce the best possible work.
Thank you, Miranda. Fantastic. Kathryn, Deane, are you in the room? Oh, you're in the room. Do you want to speak from there, or are you going to come up? You're going to come up. So Kathryn is with us and is the Consultant Director of ArtWorks Alliance, and she's going to give us one more provocation before I give you a chance to have conversations.
Thank you. Great, yes, I'll take that. So thank you very much. I like ArtWorks Cymru's principles very much. I know how much time has gone into devising them, trying to capture every nuance. I can understand the 3 high-level statements, the 9 sub-statements, and the 40 subsidiary statements presented, as seems to be the case now, as key indicators. So I like those. But I like Artwork Scotland's principles too. They've got 4 high-level statements, 29 substatements, and 72 indicative questions. And the one of those I love the most is the question about ethics. I can't have seen any other quality statements that talk about ethics, so I like those two. Then in England, there's the Arts Council England quality principles. There they are. Only 7 of those, but they're linked to a set of participatory metrics. Come on, keep up at the back there. There are 39 of those. And I like Youth Music's Do Review and Improve, which has 4 high-level statements, 23 indicators, and those are just the new ones. When Arts Council England was first devising its own quality frameworks, it found 28 existing quality frameworks in its research. All of these that I've been cavalier with and dropped on the floor have been devised since ArtWorks began, and I think all of them show owe something at least directly or indirectly to ArtWorks, and ArtWorks has not only given us quality frameworks, it's also given us quality, or at least understandings of quality. So, like number 77 buses, we've got several frameworks arriving at once here. And the only thing that's worse than having no quality frameworks is having 31, 32, 33 of them. And I reckon there's something like a total of 1,435 indicators. Dear God, why so many of these? Well, they're all different, of course. And when ArtWorks Cymru and ArtWorks Scotland tried to see about putting their two together, they concluded it couldn't be done. And I respect that, of course, coming from 2 of the senior thinkers in ArtWorks Alliance. But generally, I find it difficult to believe that the differences between these guides have distinction. So there's one there that says the duration of contact, time and depth of engagement need to be sufficient and appropriate to achieve the intended outcomes. There's another one down there that says, is it clear what the intentions and desired outcomes are? Are there sufficient resources, including time and staffing? Does the activity feel well placed? And for the life of me, I can't see a substantive difference between those two. So does it matter having 34 guides? One of those is for Scotland. One of those covers all young people's art making and audiencing. There's one about music in England. This one covers all arts, all types of participation. And they're all supposed to speak the language of their users, though I would question that as well. Well, I think it could matter. Here's what Mary Schwartz's quality paper in ArtWorks said. She said, a key issue is a lack of clarity in the articulation of what we mean by equality and differences in understanding what quality is, which leads to 3 main points: a lack of clarity contributing to negative perceptions of the sector in terms of artistic quality, a mix of interest and unease about formal approaches to quality assurance and improvement, and the critical importance of a shared understanding of quality between artists and commissioners in order to address these points. And if she'd been writing that now, I'm sure she'd have also picked up Miranda's point about who are these guides being written to serve. In other words, what Mary Schwartz was saying was that there are putting in place unnecessary barriers to trade, leading to less employment for participatory artists, not more, confusion in purchasers who can't use just one framework to make their buying decisions, wibbly leadership in the sector because we have to prosecute the case for all of these different guides, artists therefore who don't care about using quality guides, and ultimately participants who don't get the best experiences. So my worry is that taken as a whole, we've spent too much of our time generating frameworks that are spot on for their particular part of the sector, and possibly too little time in debating what quality is. And Miranda talked also about the process and product issues, and we have to continue to debate that. We have to address issues of utilitarianism, and if you're an unashamed Benthamite like I am, then you will agree that the arts are and only unashamedly utilitarian. I expect to be handed out of Llandrindod any minute now. We have to agree who decides what quality is. And all of those answers and many more are in my own little piece on quality, which is a piece called On Quality, in which I argue that the only quality that matters, the only quality that is stable, the only quality that is objective is the quality of outcome for the participant. And I cannot believe it takes 1,435 indicators to describe that quality. When we were working on our very much simpler ArtWorks code of practice in 2014, this issue of alignment between codes was the only one we looked at. We considered codes ranging from those for advice work in drug and alcohol professions to private music teachers. And we found they were all mappable easily against each other, particularly at the high-level statement level. And I think it is important, for the reasons I've already stated, that we do try to achieve alignment, at least, between the quality frameworks used across ArtWorks Alliance members. But of much more importance is the question we should have tackled 2 or 3 years back. How do we get these frameworks embedded universally, routinely, rigorously across ArtWorks Alliance members? What would that mean for all of those with their fingers in this pie, for artists, for commissioners, in which I include funders, for organisations like ArtWorks Cymru, and crucially, what would that mean for the quality of the outcomes for participants? Thank you very much.